Let's begin with number 10. The chant drops you into what seems like a peaceful spiritual retreat until it doesn't stay that way. You're playing as Jess, someone just trying to find some peace on this remote island called Glory Island. But after one group chanting session, things start to go wrong. Really wrong. You don't get guns in this game. You're working with things like sage, salt, and crystals to survive. You'll need to craft tools using natural stuff you find around the island. Some are used to protect yourself, others to fight creatures. The game's built around three main stats: mind, body, and spirit. If your mind gets too low, Jess starts to panic, like she really starts to lose it. You can meditate to calm her down or shift focus to spirit to help recover mind. It's this ongoing back and forth, managing mental health while trying to survive. Combat's not always worth it. You don't have unlimited supplies, so picking your battles matters. Some fights, it's better to just avoid. But yeah, there are boss fights. And when they happen, you need to think. Use the environment, combine tools with powers, stuff like that. Exploration's a big part too. You'll find puzzles, secret items, and slowly uncover what actually happened on the island. The look of the game is kind of wild. It's got this psychedelic feel. Glowing plants, weird cult-like buildings, these prism lights everywhere. It almost feels like walking through an old 70s horror film. Each area of the island has a distinct energy color, and that ties into the story in some interesting ways. As you move through, you learn about former cult members, their past, their mistakes, and how the gloom ended up here. Next up, number 9. Visage kind of throws you into this slow, creeping horror experience that, it really messes with your head. You're stuck inside this massive, constantly shifting house that's basically haunted by its own tragedies. A guy stuck in some messed up version of reality after a pretty tragic past. And now, you're basically wandering hallways facing echoes of everything that went wrong. There's no action here, no guns or fighting. You're totally defenseless. Your only tools are, light bulbs, lighters, some sanity pills, maybe a candle or a sledgehammer if you're lucky. But honestly, the real fight is with your own mind. Stay in the dark too long and stuff gets weird. Lights flicker, whispers creep in, doors slam by themselves. The game plays out in chapters, each one focused on a different person's nightmare. There's a little girl with some really dark stuff, an old woman losing her grip, and a man haunted by visions. You're not just watching it all happen, you're piecing it together, slowly, by paying attention. The inventory system's kind of rough. It makes you think hard about what to carry. Do you bring meds or a candle? Either way, that tension builds. And honestly, the atmosphere just sticks with you. If you're into psychological horror, Visage really nails it. Number 8. In Madison, you're not running from some big monster or fighting for your life with guns. You're stuck inside your own personal nightmare with just a cursed Polaroid camera and a whole lot of dread. You play as Luca, a teenager who wakes up confused, bloodied, and very much alone, except for whatever's lurking just out of sight. That old camera? Yeah, it's possessed. It lets you interact with the paranormal. Taking pictures literally reveals things that aren't visible to the naked eye. Doors appear, hidden clues show up, and sometimes stuff you really don't want to see comes into focus. The house you explore feels like it hates you. Nothing stays where it should. Rooms change, walls close in, and the whole place seems like it's reacting to your fear. There's no combat at all, which makes every creak and shadow way more stressful. You rely on solving puzzles, staying calm, and snapping photos like your life depends on it, because it kinda does. What makes it hit so hard is the atmosphere. It's not just scary, it's suffocating. The sound design messes with your head, and the visuals are straight up disturbing in the best way. If you're into psychological horror that gets under your skin without cheap jump scares, Madison seriously delivers.
The attic.
Number 7. Karma, The Dark World is a psychological horror game where you're basically inside people's minds, trying to figure out what happened. You play as Daniel, a dude working for some shady government group in a messed up alternate version of East Germany. Super heavy on the dystopian vibes. Surveillance, mind control, that kind of stuff. Instead of shooting things, you're solving puzzles and exploring all these creepy, surreal environments that are full of broken memories. Stuff keeps changing when you're not looking, and it's hard to tell what's real and what's not. It's all about atmosphere, super dark, kinda depressing, but in a good way if you're into that. No jump scares every 2 seconds. You'll hear whispers, see weird visuals, and feel totally uncomfortable the whole time. Visually, it's wild, like a dream that turns into a nightmare real quick. If you liked games like Observer or Layers of Fear, but wanted something even more psychological, yeah, this one's for you. It's not trying to scare you all the time. It just wants to mess with your brain. And honestly, it does a pretty good job.
But this is the life we lead. To step into your memories, we confront your darkest thoughts, expose your hardest moments in life, and bring the truth from the shadow into the light.
So number 6. In Sound Mind isn't your average horror game. It's more like diving deep into someone's messed up memories. You play as Desmond Wales, a therapist who wakes up in this strange dreamlike apartment. You can't use ordinary means to escape. Your only way out is by listening to cassette tapes of your patient's sessions. Once you hit play, you're transported into their minds, walking through surreal, twisted versions of reality. You explore everything from haunted malls to creepy lighthouses, each full of bizarre puzzles, monsters, and traps that mess with your perception. Combat? Yeah, there's some. Players can use a pistol, shotgun, and even a flare gun. But mostly, you're navigating mazes, solving brain-bending puzzles, and trying not to lose your mind. There's also a cat. You can actually pet it. That's fun. What really stands out is the soundtrack. Thanks to the Living Tombstone, each chapter has its own haunting theme that just sticks with you. And the story? It's all about mental health, trauma, and empathy, not just scares. Some characters are straight up heartbreaking. It's around 5 to 8 hours long, depending how deep you go into secrets and collectibles. It's not your usual jump scare fest. It's smart, surreal, and a little bit emotional. If you're into horror that makes you think instead of just hide behind a couch, In Sound Mind is worth checking out. Number 5. Phasmophobia. Phasmophobia is honestly one of the most unique horror games you can play on PS5. Even if, yeah, the console version doesn't get talked about much. It's not about flashy visuals or constant jump scares. It's slower, more patient, and that makes it way more unsettling. You're not out there fighting ghosts, you're trying to understand them. Instead of guns, you're using EMF readers, UV flashlights, and spirit boxes. And the moment you realize the ghost can hear you through your mic, yeah, things get real fast. The sound design is what makes it hit hard. You'll hear a floorboard creak, maybe a breath in your ear, and then silence. Like your whole team just stops talking all at once. That kind of tension, it doesn't let go. On PS5, it's even more intense. The spatial audio pulls you into every corner of the room, and the haptic feedback? It's subtle but sharp. Lights flicker, your controller vibrates, and suddenly, you don't feel so alone. And if you ever try it in VR, good luck. People do rip the headset off. No, it's not the loudest horror game on PS5, but Phasmophobia definitely earns a spot on any horror fan's list, especially if you like co-op games that force you to listen, wait, and survive. Number 4. Quantum Error. Quantum Error is a first-person horror game that blends firefighting simulation with cosmic sci-fi terror. A bold combination that you don't see often. You play as Jacob Thomas, a firefighter sent on a rescue mission to the Monad Quantum Research Facility. What starts as a standard emergency quickly descends into something far more disturbing. At first, it feels grounded. You're navigating dense smoke, operating heavy gear, forcing open doors, and using extinguishers under pressure. But as you go deeper, things begin to fracture. Reality distorts, time loses meaning, and something inhuman begins to emerge from the shadows. You're not just battling fire or rescuing survivors anymore, you're facing nightmares beyond understanding. The game is built in Unreal Engine, and while it doesn't reach AAA polish, it nails the atmosphere. Flickering lights, claustrophobic corridors, and haunting sound design keep the tension high. The transitions between different dimensions and realities happen fluidly, giving the game a surreal, almost dreamlike tone. It's worth noting, Quantum Error has its flaws. Performance dips, stiff animations, and a few technical issues held it back from reaching a broader audience. But underneath is a deeply ambitious, experimental horror experience that pushes boundaries in unexpected ways. If you're looking for something different, something slower, weirder, and more psychological than your typical horror shooter, Quantum Error deserves a second look. It may not be perfect, but it's one of the most underrated and original horror games on PS5.
Number 3. Still Wakes Deep.
Still Wakes the Deep is a first-person narrative horror game that strands you on an offshore oil rig in the middle of the North Sea. You play as an ordinary worker, suddenly cut off from the outside world after a mysterious disaster strikes. Communications are gone, the storm is getting worse, and something inhuman is now roaming the rig's dark, flooding corridors. This isn't a survival shooter. You're completely unarmed. No HUD, no inventory, just your instincts, your surroundings, and the desperate need to escape. The terror doesn't come from loud monsters or gore. It comes from how real everything feels. Narrow steel hallways twist and shake. Alarms echo, pipes groan. You're always one step away from disaster. Built in Unreal Engine 5, the game delivers some of the most atmospheric visuals on PS5. Rain lashes against windows, emergency lights flicker, and the sound design makes every creak and crash hit hard. The rig itself becomes the threat, claustrophobic, unstable, and constantly falling apart around you. Still Wakes the Deep isn't flashy, and maybe that's why it slipped past so many players. But it's a masterclass in slow burn horror and immersive storytelling. If you're after a tense, grounded experience where the setting is your biggest enemy, this is one of the PS5's most underrated horror gems.
Number 2. Layers of Fear.
Layers of Fear on PS5 isn't just a remake. It's a full reimagining of the first two games and their expansions rebuilt from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5. Visually stunning and dripping with atmosphere, this version had all the makings of a breakout horror title, but for many players it came and went quietly. There are no monsters to fight here. Instead, you explore the fractured minds of three artists, a painter, an actor, and a writer, each haunted by trauma, guilt, and obsession. Their stories unfold through surreal, ever-changing environments that warp with your perception. A familiar hallway might twist into something terrifying the moment you look away. Visually, it's in a class of its own. Real-time lighting, photoreal textures, and layered sound design make every moment feel cinematic. It doesn't rely on cheap jump scares. The horror builds slowly through dread, atmosphere, and the constant feeling that the world itself is turning against you. Layers of Fear isn't about survival, it's about surrendering to the story, the emotions, and the psychological weight of it all. That's likely why it's often misunderstood. Players looking for combat or traditional gameplay loops may miss what makes it special, but for those drawn to deep narrative, psychological tension, and environmental storytelling, Layers of Fear is a hidden gem on PS5 that deserves far more recognition.
Number 1. Martha is Dead.
Martha is Dead might be one of the boldest psychological horror games on the PlayStation 5, yet it quietly slipped under the radar for many players. Released in 2022, it takes place in the Italian countryside during World War II, but the real horror isn't the war. It's grief, trauma, and a mind slowly unraveling. You play as Julia, the twin sister of Martha, who's found dead by a lake. As Julia digs into the mystery, the line between truth, memory, and hallucination begins to break down. The game explores heavy themes like mental illness, family conflict, and identity, using surreal imagery and a thick, oppressive atmosphere to pull you under. Visually, the game is striking. Built in Unreal Engine 4, it brings rural Italy to life, with natural lighting and landscapes that feel both beautiful and unsettling. Some moments feel like walking through a decaying oil painting, calm on the surface but full of quiet dread. The game sparked controversy for a few graphic scenes, some of which were censored on console, but that's part of what makes it stand out. Martha is Dead doesn't hold back. It's raw, disturbing, and emotionally intense in a way most horror games avoid. If you're looking for horror that goes beyond jump scares and dares to explore psychological depth, Martha is Dead is one of the most overlooked and emotionally charged horror titles on PS5. Some horror games, they don't need huge marketing budgets or big-name studios to hit hard.
So if you're into narrative-heavy thrillers, or you're more the brutal survival horror type, don't be surprised if your next favorite scare is from a game you've never heard of, until now. Midnight Out.